If you click this video, then you're probably struggling with your snowboard size, but don't worry, you're really not alone. Over on the website, one of the most common questions we're getting is whether a snowboard's too small, too big, and how to know the difference. Well, today I'm going to show you how to find the perfect snowboard size range for you, and also dispel a couple of common snowboard size myths. So make sure you stick around to the very end. First up, let's talk basics. Snowboard sizing isn't all about your height. Sure, that's an important factor, but factors such as your weight, your shoe size, your riding ability, and your riding preference are going to be just as important. Our snowboard size calculator over on the website takes all of these into account. But before we look at the calculator, let's debunk a couple of common snowboard myths. So I'm sure we all know that your snowboard should come somewhere between your chin and your nose. Wrong! That's actually one of the most commonly spread snowboard myths, and sure, it's the quickest way of getting through the queue in the rental shop, but it's grossly inaccurate when it doesn't take into account things like your weight, your riding ability, and your riding style. What this can lead to is a really tall rider who's quite light being on a board that's far too long for him, and this will steer like a cruise ship. It also leads to riders like me who are shorter but on the heavier side, having a board that's far too short, and the edge will just wash out rather than holding my weight. That's exactly why it's important to take all of these other factors into account. Myth number 2 is to go as short as you possibly can. Okay, maybe this isn't a myth, but it's really common with beginners to try and get as short a snowboard as possible, just like in surfing. Now, whilst a shorter board can help with agility and with turn initiation, if you go too short, whenever you hit speed, you're gonna wash out. You need enough edge to hold your weight and support you when you're going through those turns. So what I would recommend is going for a snowboard size somewhere in the middle of your sizing range, and then over time you can work out whether you want to go a little bit shorter or a little bit longer. Myth number 3 is that your snowboard boot size doesn't matter. Oh, but it does. If you've ever experienced toe drag or heel drag, you'll know exactly what I mean, but that's where you go to carve, your toes dig into the snow, and you'll wipe out in spectacular fashion. Basically, if your boot size is 10.5 US or above, you're going to want to be looking at a mid-wide or even a wide snowboard. Fortunately, the size calculator will tell you exactly what width to go for, but I thought it was worth mentioning anyway. That's probably enough myths busted for one day, so let's head on over to the snowboard size calculator and find the perfect size range for you. What you're gonna do is click on the link in the description below. This will take you straight to the Snowboarding Days size calculator. Alternatively, head on over to snowboardingdays.com and you'll see it in the top menu. Once you're over at the size calculator, scroll on down to the first question, which is about your snowboard gender. Now, of course, men can ride women's snowboards and vice versa, but generally speaking, men's boards will be designed for heavier weights and larger boot sizes. There's also some differences in the flex pattern, so bear this in mind when making a decision. So select an option and click Next, at which point we're going to ask you about your snowboarding ability level. And what I would say here is to be as honest as you physically can, because it'll really help us to hone in on the perfect size for you. If you're unsure about the different ability levels, hit the info button and we've given you a brief breakdown of each one here. A very quick way of looking at it is that beginners are usually in their first few weeks of riding. They're probably not quite linking their turns just yet and are still sticking to the more mellow slopes. Intermediate riders are starting to pick up speed, probably starting to carve some of their turns, and may have put down a couple of basic tricks such as spins and grabs. Advanced riders are going to be confident across the entire mountain, comfortable in the backcountry, and probably have a couple of advanced tricks such as inverts under their belt. Expert riders are probably not watching this video because they're busy in competition or hitting some insane lines out in Alaska. So for this video, we'll choose beginner, at which point we're going to ask you your preferred riding style. And what I would say here is if you're unsure, then just go for all mountain. This means you're going to be riding a bit of everything from groomers to powder to park, and you want a board that is the most versatile option. This will be a board right in the middle of your size range, and it doesn't pigeonhole you into one particular discipline. If, however, you already know that you're heading towards park riding, choosing the freestyle option will give you a slightly shorter board, which is better for spins and for agility. You may prefer the idea of carving and powder, in which case choosing freeride is a good idea, and these boards are slightly longer than both the all mountain and the freestyle options. Powder is pretty self-explanatory, and split boards are for advanced powder riders who are heading out into the backcountry. As I said, most people are going to choose all mountain here. Then the last page is going to be where you enter your personal metrics. So choose whether you want them in kilograms or in pounds. And we'll run a quick example here. So a 5'10" rider who weighs 200 pounds and is a size 9 boot. So we're going to click find my size. And there you go, that is your perfect size range. So why is it a range and not a single number? Well, because in snowboard sizing, there are no absolutes. There's so much scope for personal preference that it's much better to have a range. It's also the case that if you are slightly more towards freestyle, you may choose to go down at the bottom end of your range. But if you want stability and speed, you might be looking at the upper end. If it's your first board and you really have no idea, I always recommend going somewhere in the middle of your range because this is going to be a really versatile option. And over the years, you'll probably decide whether to go up or down as you start to get a feel for the board. In terms of width, this is decided by your boot size, and this shown here is a standard width board. If you went up to a 10.5, for example, then you might see a mid-wide board suggested, and this is to make sure that the larger boot doesn't overhang and cause any drag. This is even more important as you go up in size, and this is recommending a wide board. So now that you've got your perfect size range, you can click here to go through to some recommendations on Evo, or you can go back and play around, changing your riding style and seeing what effect that has on your board size. So there you have it, the easy way to find your perfect snowboard size. But if you're still stuck, I'm going to be opening the comments to any of your snowboard sizing questions, and I promise to answer every single one. So just drop me a message below. One last tip before you go, it's worth being aware of volume shifted snowboards. So these bad boys are shorter and fatter, but they maintain the same exact board volume, which means you can ride these up to 10 centimeters shorter than your regular snowboard. If you're ordering something like this, for example, the Ride Warpig, make sure to check the manufacturer's guide before you pull the trigger. If you found this video helpful in any way at all, make sure to subscribe to the channel because we've got loads of great stuff coming for the rest of the season. See you in the next one.